Hey there, entrepreneurs. My name is Sushant, and welcome to TrepTalks. This is the show where I interview successful e-commerce entrepreneurs, business executives, and thought leaders, and ask them questions about their business story, and also dive deep into some of the strategies and tactics that they have used to start and grow their businesses. And today, I'm really excited to welcome Ben Sarrazin to the show. Ben is the founder of Yuba Bikes. Yuba Bikes is a brand dedicated to revolutionizing urban mobility by designing high-quality cargo bikes that make transportation more sustainable, efficient, and family-friendly. Ben started Yuba with a mission to create practical, eco-friendly alternatives to cars, helping people carry more while reducing their carbon footprint. Now, before we dive into this interview, if you enjoyed this kind of content, please make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. And for more interviews like this, please visit treptalks.com. And with that, Ben, thank you so much again and welcome. And I'm looking forward to speaking with you.
Hey, good morning. Very happy to be here and looking forward to having this conversation with you.
So, I was on your website and looking through, and, it's a very interesting product. And I also was inspired by some of the names of your bikes. I believe one of your bike is called Spicy Bike or Spicy Curry, actually. So,
The spicy curry. That should ring a bell, right?
yeah, for sure. So I'm very interested, how did you kind of begin on this entrepreneurial journey? What inspired you to kind of start a cargo bike, a bike business?
Yeah, that is a very good question. It is the combination of multiple things. One is my interest for environmental science and trying to find solutions to the planet's problem or global warming and so forth. I mean, we're talking 20, 25 years ago. And the other one is my passion for bicycle as a mobility tool. And traveling around the world or trying to carry things with my bike, I just realized that the bicycles were not very well suited to carrying things. And some products already exist in the market in Europe, for instance, or in Southeast Asia, for example. Three-wheelers or pretty big bikes, but not super practical for going on single-track trails or maneuvering in traffic. So that's how the concept came. And I also realized, hey, what can we do to inspire people to use their bicycles for transportation a little more? How can we motivate them or create something excited so it is fun to use your bike to go get groceries or bring your kids to school and so forth.
So you had this a greater consciousness for environmentalism and sustainability even like 25 years ago. I think not many people, was there a lot of consciousness about, being environmentally friendly and so forth that long ago?
Well, that may be because of my background. I spent a lot of time on rivers, running rivers in a kayak and traveling the world. So I'd seen the pollution of rivers and some other environment. And after going to college or university, I just really wanted to, like being a scientist and saying, hey, it's getting dirty or polluted or the planet is getting warmer. It's cool. There are a lot of people who are already doing this, but what can we do practically? So my 2 cents, my little contribution with my background is because I like the outdoors so much and bicycles. It's like, oh, well, I think if we could motivate people to ride their bikes more and make that a more appealing of a solution, it might contribute to a better future, to a more sustainable planet. And again, it's a little drop in the ocean, right?
Yeah. And so your bikes, I mean, you call the bikes cargo bikes, so of course they are meant for a specific purpose, or you had a specific vision in the mind for your bikes or for your products. Can you talk a little bit about your products and how they work, what's different about them, what kind of things people can do on these bikes? Yeah, can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about your product line, please?
Yeah. So at Yuba Bikes, so our intention since the beginning was to make products, bicycles, load carrying bicycle that could carry almost anything, but also being really maneuverable. So we went with a two wheel product. Long wheelbase versus if people who've been to the Netherlands or Denmark, they can see tricycles, for example. But tricycles are not pretty heavy and bulky, and you can't really go on a long ride. So that was our premise in terms of design. We just wanted something very maneuverable. Someone could use on the trails in Uganda or in Kenya or in India, or in single track in the forest around London or Paris, or just going getting groceries in Berlin. And so the way people use our product, they find them really useful, and we put a special emphasis on safety and stability. So people carry, 1 to 3, 4 kids. We've seen pictures of customers. Sometimes they use a product to carry 4 kids, which could look like a big load, but it's not. If you carry like a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old, they're not that heavy. We've had people tour. We had a woman in Australia. She toured the entire continent with her cello for a few months. You imagine a massive cello on the side of a bicycles and going around Australia and doing concert with the guy in the States traveling with his dog, east to west and west to west and west to east and north to south. So that's the kind of thing people, or just getting groceries or with people going to surfing with our bikes. So that all type of loads, from like big loads to children or dogs or musical instruments.
So it's really it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's really an alternative to like your traditional automobiles, cars, like motorcycles and so forth. It gives another option of people who want to get out in the nature and maybe, have the ability to carry additional stuff with them. Um, is there a specific kind of person or target market that you're going after? Like, do you find that is it more the people who are adventurous, people who want to get out in the nature, are those that are attracted to your bikes?
Yeah, well, that is a good question. I mean, the type of people that end up using or bike the most, I will say that there are 3 types. One is the one you just mentioned. People want to go on a long journey, and they need something big to carry. Like I mentioned, the cello, or they want to carry a surfboard with them and camping equipment. So you need like a pretty strong bike that has that cargo capacity. And I don't know if you mentioned this, but we make electric and non-electric bikes, so battery assisted and just regular bikes. Then the second groups are parents. So we have a lot of families. We live in like in Toronto, for example. We have a lot of customers, or in Vancouver. They're like, hey, how do I get my 1 kid, 2 kids to school and back and forth during all the activities and get to work, and I don't get stuck in traffic, and I get to move my legs a little bit. And the third kind, we have a small-time entrepreneur that do services, like a plumber, an electrician, and they just want to be able to access. So if you imagine, if you're in a downtown area, like parking is really difficult, with a bike, and if you have all your tools on the bike, you just park on the sidewalk and run upstairs with your tools. I mean, obviously it would be for a massive cargo of, I don't know, like bricks or something, but like someone who has to do quick repairs. So that's the type of customers we have.
Wow, very interesting. Is there more demand for the electric bikes or the non-electric bikes?
So now there's more demand for the electric bikes, and we'll say it's probably like around 70 to 80% electric now. Um, it, that's because also it's the trend in the market. Electric bikes are very popular now. They give you a little more range. They allow you to get to where you want to go without sweating necessarily, which can be an advantage when you're going to work.
Mm.
And non-electrics are great, if you live in a flat area. I mean, if you live in a place where it's hilly, like Seattle, for example, there are big hills. It's nice to have an electric bike over there.
Now, one thing you did mention before we started is that, when you started out, there wasn't a market for these kind of bikes specifically. So you had to work to basically create an awareness and a market for this. Can you talk a little bit about those early days of, how did you even come up with the prototype? Like, did you kind of were involved in the design process? Did you come up with prototype? Did you show it to people? And how did you kind of get it into the market?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, it was a journey. So I mean, first when it came up with this concept, people were like, why would the people use their bike for transportation? You know, like the bicycle market in the West was mostly about recreation. You know, that's when the Tour de France was happening with Lance Armstrong, and mountain biking was really big. And especially people in the industry, they could not really, being in Europe or in the United States, they couldn't really understand that someone might want to ride their bike to get to work or just for transportation, or that one day might be hard to drive a car in the city like New York or in Europe. And in terms of how the process, so I kind of sketched like what I wanted, like this long tail bike, you know, this long extended chassis bike with a huge rack on the back. So if you can picture that for your listeners, so imagine two wheels. You take a regular bicycle and you stretch it with your hand, and you make it maybe 50% longer. And the big part and the rack part on the back, instead of being about like 10 or 15 inches, is 2 or 3 times the length of that. So you have a lot of room for cargo. Then I found a designer engineer, and we made some drawings, and then we went to convince a bicycle maker that it was a good project for them to take on, because they had no innovation. Someone with a factory and the capacity. And we managed to convince them, and they agreed to produce a first run of bicycle. It was actually 500 bicycles that they produced for us, with no money up front for me and the other guy that was working with me at the time. And
Was that
so
more
then
of a partnership arrangement, or?
no, they just I don't know, just decided to do it, and I mean, that was a stroke of luck in some ways, and so they financed the production, and then instead of concentrating on finding money, I concentrated on finding customers. So rather quickly, I was able to sell those 500 bikes without having them in my ownership yet. So that's kind of how I got started. So I didn't start with much money. I started with so this is often a mistake that people make in business. Is, I mean, you have to find money, in a lot of situation, but you really have to find customers. I mean, that's the key. You have to sell your product. It's not about raising money, but obviously there are plenty of projects or industry. You can't do anything if you don't have a little bit of seed money. But the key is really about selling, being able to sell your solution, being software or hard good.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like, it's like you were selling your idea, your vision to the manufacturer, and then you went out and tried to get the customer.
Right.
Do you consider yourself to be a good salesperson? Like, what was your secret?
That is a very good question. I guess I'm probably am a good salesperson, because I was able to find many customers over the year and keep them and grow a business from nothing to one of the pretty active player in this field.
Oh, that's awesome. Is it like, what advice would you give to other entrepreneurs? Like, I think this is the ideal situation, right? Because most people, when they're starting out, they don't have money, and so basically they have to do is sell their idea. Is there any advice you can give to entrepreneurs to be able to better sell that idea? Like, is it passion? Is it writing a patter? What?
Yeah, I think you have to be passionate. I mean, and obviously you need to create a good story. And one thing we're discussing at the beginning is what we try to do is create a lifestyle of this cargo bike thing or utility bike thing, kind of like make it look cool. It's like, it's cool to carry a guitar, it's cool to carry a kid, or it's cool to carry a surfboard, kind of using and we got lucky with this product because it's highly visual. So when you see it on the street, you can't miss it. Like, there was nothing like it at the time, so people was like, oh, what is that? So people remember and they come to talk to you. So one of the keys is to create a nice package, a nice product that's where people are going to remember and create a story around that.
And when you launched, was that in Europe early on? And I'm assuming e-commerce came later on. So were you like, did you start out, did you have like a storefront, or how did you kind of launch this?
Yeah. So, well, e-commerce kind of existed already. The problem we have a little bit with e-commerce is that we make a product that requires one, people want to test ride it and touch it because it's pretty expensive, and there's also a question of sizing. And two, it requires technical expertise sometimes to adjust the mechanical part or the electrical part. So it's a little, the e-commerce unfortunately is sometimes a little limiting for us. But we did use a pretty a digital strategy of website and emailing and blogs and networking that way. And we started selling online pretty early on too, and we've always sold online, but it's not the main bulk of our business.
Your main bulk is through storefronts. How many storefronts do you have right now? Are you distributing through other bicycle shops and so forth?
Yeah, so we sell usually through an independent bicycle retailer in Canada and the United States, and also in Europe. So we have about 200 stores or 150 stores in North America. There are probably like 350 in Western Europe, I believe. And then we also sell through the website. I mean, Canada and the United States are huge places, and often people are pretty far away from a retailer. It's like if you're like 100 miles from a retailer, you like, well, maybe I'll order online.
And I'm assuming shipping would be a challenge, right? I mean, this is a pretty big, bulky product, heavy product. And like, do you ship it assembled, unassembled? Do you have like instructions that people use to assemble it? How does that work?
Yes. So, that all the devil is in the details, right? Sometimes. So we design a product that will be able to ship ground in a UPS box. And I think the limit, if I recall, there's a certain length of the for the box, and I can't remember what it is now. But we made sure that we're within those parameters, so we didn't have to ship freight. So we could ship ground using the UPS or FedEx truck that you see around. And the assembly is not very complicated. It's not very complicated. So we have a little, assembly manual and some videos, and really, it's easier than assembling, a roof rack on your car or some other product that you may be receiving in your home.
Okay. So the customers in your funnel do they come through marketing? Do they come through word of mouth? So you have all these distributors, bicycle distributors or shops that have your product. Are they who are the ones selling this item? Are customers coming into these shops already having seen your product somewhere through marketing or like in person? And like how do customers know about this product? And what is kind of, I mean, you're not in the shop to sell it, so like have they already done their research beforehand, sold it to themselves, and then they're coming to pick up from a shop, or the shop does the selling? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in general, like our experience, that people either do some research online or they notice something while they're on the street. They notice someone using the product, often at their school, the supermarket, or they do research like, how do I carry my cello on the bike? And maybe we have a blog post that talks about that. So through search engine optimization, we end up with a good ranking. And we've noticed that our customers, like very often, it takes them a while to make this purchase decision, like many weeks, many months, sometimes half a year, because it's a family decision. Often it's a couple decision. It's like people's like, oh, all right, are we really gonna do this and not buy a second car, for the family and just do everybody? So there's a little more than just I like this. It looks like a good looking product, and I'm just gonna buy it. No, it takes a little more in terms of in terms of deciding how to use the product. But usually when they show up at a retailer, they're super educated. They know
Hmm.
about the product. They really know about the product. And we also were lucky to have many markets. Like I'm thinking San Francisco or Portland, Oregon, or plenty of other, Denver, etc., where people would just see the bikes and in action and just ask user to try them, and so then they will go to the store and purchase the product.
I mean, to me, an application of this, and maybe you already have customers, is the bike couriers that are delivering like e-commerce packages or something like in a highly dense city. I mean, these days it's like that's seems to me a good application of it where, they can still carry a big amount of packages and not have to worry about the traffic and things like this, like too much.
Yeah, so it's funny that because that's not a market we've been really able to capture over the
Okay.
years, because it's a very it's a pretty funny market. They have their it's like a tribe. They have their own code, and it's like about a certain type of bikes, often no brakes. But we've sold bikes to people doing deliveries, like supermarkets, for example. I mean, I remember one in New York where they would just use our fleet of bikes, and just they when people did grocery shopping, they would just load the bike with whatever they wanted to get, eggs and potatoes and pasta and tomato sauce, and just go deliver them to people's home.
Is there any range issues with the electric bikes that you have? Like, do you have it? Do they come with a certain range
Yeah.
specifications and so forth?
So yeah, I wouldn't call it an issue, because when you have a battery, there's always a range topic, right? That happens
Yeah.
with cars or anything. Um, I mean, like around 30 to 60 mile, depending on the battery setup that we have, is kind of the range we get for a product.
Okay, that's pretty nice.
It's
Um,
pretty good. It's pretty good. I mean, and take into account that if it's hilly, you're gonna get less. If it's very cold, you're gonna get less. If it's very windy, you're gonna get less. And how much pedaling you do. You have to remember, all bikes have pedal assist. So basically, the electric motor works when you apply pressure through the pedal. It's not The oars are not throttle assist. They're not like little motorcycles.
what is your day-to-day now, given that I think you've achieved a certain market adoption and so forth? Are you still um, mostly worried about growth? Are you worried about well, maybe worry is not the right word, but
Mhm.
are you working more on the like product development, like you're trying to come up with new bicycle types? Um, where are you spending most of your time, or is it more kind of like now cruising speed? You know the business has grown to a certain extent, and now you're kind of like cruising.
Yeah, I mean that is a good question. I mean, we went through a pretty massive growth between 2015 and 2019, where the market was really growing. And I mean, we started from very small, right? Like the very small, pretty small niche, but it was growing at a pretty large pace. And we're always behind in terms of manufacturing. It's like we couldn't make enough, and then COVID happened, where like the volume, like just really the demand like boomed, and it created a lot of friction in our supply chain. And at the time, we tried to grow the company, and it didn't really work too well, because we couldn't get the product. And then post COVID, starting 2023, like the demand kind of fell, went back to uh, previous level 2019. So we had to scale back a little bit, and now uh, we on a more modest growth uh, path. Where we're not expecting to double or triple every year.
Hmm.
We're just more like 10 or 20% is satisfying. So that goes through opening new market. And in terms of how I spend my time, um, so over the past few years, I've spent a lot of time dealing with supply chain. And as we know, as we hear in politics these days around the world, there's a lot of friction that's being created. And in the bike industry or other industry, there are a lot of hurdles where with tariffs and stuff, and it's really hard to navigate because it changes all the time. And
Mhm.
businesses need, whatever the decision is, it's fine, but you need time to adapt. You can't switch from one country to the next, in 3 weeks or in 6 months. I mean, supply chains are really hard to put in place. So we've been a lot of doing a lot of moving around of supply chain, because it's pretty the landscape is pretty complicated at the moment. And as you said, most of my time is dedicating on product development right now, um, and still on marketing. That's kind of how I spend my time.
Yeah, supply chain is a tricky issue now, right? Like it's almost like you have to, or every business needs to have like two suppliers on two sides of the world of the globe, so that if
Yeah,
something it's not working on one side, you can fall back. And especially now with all the tariff talk and things like this, it's like
yeah.
that's the other challenge. So, um, are you like, is your main suppliers, are they more in the Southeast Asia?
Yeah, so I mean, what's interesting about the bicycle industry, and I don't want to make this boring for you, for a listener, but the bike industry is Asian. It's been Asian for 40 years. All the Western. So I mean, this is not talking about India. It was got the biggest bike industry of all of it. Uh, but like all the Western companies moved all their supply chain, in the 70s and 80s to mostly Taiwan, and and uh and so a bicycle is many parts. It's like rims and tires and saddle. It's a lot of parts that are made in many different factories, and you've got this entire ecosystem that has been in Taiwan for 40 plus years, and you can't relocate, because you need the entire ecosystem to move. It's not like I was listening to a great podcast not long ago from this guy who created American Giant, the clothing brand, that tried to relocate, make clothing in the United States only, zipper everything, and it was really hard. But you had to deal with 3 or 4 element in a garment.
Mm,
Like a zipper and the fabric. We have to deal with 30, so
mm.
it's really hard to relocate to move the supply chain. So even if we assemble bike in Europe or in Mexico or in Canada, you still have to bring most of your parts from Taiwan or Southeast Asia.
Yeah, it's a challenging problem, and I
Hmm.
think many businesses have to deal with this now. And of
Correct.
course, your product is more of a complicated one, I guess. Do you, in terms of marketing, what kind of effort? I know you're online, and do you have a marketing department that does marketing efforts? Do you work with agencies? What kind of marketing do you do? What works well?
Yeah. So marketing is such a wide subject nowadays. There's just so many things you can do. But to me, like the core of the marketing effort is the website, the web presence. It's like if you don't have a good website and good web content, good SEO, uh, then it's not worth it. So we try to make sure that our website, and we're launching a new one very shortly. Uh, Trying to make sure our website is as informative as possible and as descriptive as possible with the best photography we can. And then, from there we do a little bit of digital advertising when needed. We do events, et cetera, et cetera.
Awesome. Um, I know you have presence in Europe and you mentioned North America. What does your team look like right now? How big is your team, and that helps you manage this business?
Yes. So in Europe, there are about 20 people working out of a French and German office, mostly, and then we have distributors or partners. Like in Italy, we have a distributor, or in the UK, for example, and then we have retailer in other country where we work direct with them. In the United States, there's a team of about 12 people for North America that takes care of the business operation and marketing and sales.
In Europe, is uh, what are some of the countries that have the biggest market? I'm assuming Netherlands have a big biking culture, right?
Yeah, so the biggest biking culture in Europe, in Western Europe, are Germany, the Netherlands, obviously, France now, Denmark. What else? Belgium. So, I mean, the market has really changed in Europe compared to 10 years ago. I mean, bikes were popular 10 years ago, electric bikes, but now it's a pretty impressive trend all over the continent.
I'm assuming India is not one of your markets just because just because of the pricing and also I think the
Yeah,
pricing would be the big barrier. Although I
yeah,
think
yeah.
people can probably have a much better use for your product.
Correct. Like there's a use in India, there's a use in Africa or in some other nation. I mean, interesting enough, I was talking about the industry and the supply chain. There's a famous Indian brand called Hero. Uh, they've like, I guess they have two branches, the tractor and whatever, and then there's a bicycle branch. And the guy who owns this was Indian. Is trying to establish an industrial bicycle valley in India. I can't remember the region now, but where he's trying, what I was talking about, to bring some of the industry that was in Taiwan or Southeast Asia to India.
Nice, interesting. Um, what is the future vision for your business? Are you seeing your business? I mean, you did say that it's kind of a aging industry or something. Um, do you see 5 years down the road your business like continuing to grow organically? Do you see taking your like adding additional product lines to your business? How do you see your business evolving in the next 5-10 years?
Well, I think there are two factors. One is I believe the need for bicycle for mobility in Europe is going to keep on growing because the cities are really congested, and governments have decided to close city centers to car traffic, so people still want to move around. There's also a kind of a big environmental awareness where people kind of want to ride bikes. The bicycle infrastructure is really good or getting better in many countries in Western Europe. So I think organically the market is going to keep on growing, and then for our company Yuba, it's going to be through the quality of the product offering and also offering some complementary product.
In every entrepreneur's journey, there's always mistakes made, lessons learned. I mean, you've been doing a long time, so I'm sure, I mean, you're a seasoned entrepreneur now, but what are some mistakes or lessons that you learned maybe early on or throughout your business journey that, you kind of like, you say that entrepreneurs should definitely be aware of these kind of things?
Yeah, I mean that is such a hard question. I think it comes down. You were talking about passion earlier. It comes down to people a lot. I mean, you gotta find great people to work with you, collaborator, and people who are going to be passionate. And if you feel that the fit isn't right, uh, you have to separate as soon as possible. And I think I might have made this mistake a few times where uh, you know you expect that things are going to work out, and while you have signs and things don't work out. So it's really important to make sure like you really align with the people you work with. And also life is short, and you want to just really you know make things, when you work with people, you just want it to feel nice. You just don't want it to feel
Yeah.
hard. And that's the same thing with suppliers or customers, and just there's no reason to get aggro. You just want to find the right partner or collaborator. I think the warning about business, what's hard in business, is this all uh, quest for growth all the time, where like there's this external pressure to make you want to grow your business all the time, because the banks are asking you, it's like, well, why isn't your business growing? Or potential investors like, well, is the business not growing? And kind of everyone wants to see growth, and sometimes that's not the best thing for an organization. It's not the best thing for people in the organization is not the best thing for the owner or even the finances. So I think having a plan where you try to be sustainable, and things are sustainable for every stakeholder in the organization is really important.
No, I think that's a very good lesson, I guess, because right now it's like when a company goes public, I think that becomes their primary objective, and then they kind of everything else becomes secondary. Like, they almost stop thinking about, what's the impact they're having on, the people around them or the environment and things like this. So, and infinite growth is not really possible.
Yeah, it's not, and it's funny. I was telling you, I just came back from a trip in Asia, and a few people at the factories told me, it's like they're always very surprised I still own 100% of the business after all these years, and there's a lot of value in that. Obviously, it's really like being independent in your decision, and that's really nice. And also, sometimes suppliers or partners or customers, they're like, oh, well, I don't know, are you going to be able to assume your responsibility here financially and so forth? But at the same time, they know that they're able to talk to someone who's human, and wants to create that connection. It makes wonder, with the other people on the other side.
For sure. Now I'm going to move on to our rapid fire segment. In this segment, I'm going to ask you a few quick questions, and you have to answer them maybe in a word or a sentence or so.
Yeah.
The first one is one book recommendation for entrepreneurs and why?
There are a few. I mean, the one that just came to mind because I talked about it while I was in Asia is Shoe Dog from Phil Knight, the founder of Nike.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's a business book, but it's a great story about a journey in entrepreneurship and how you just have to be ready for anything, and that's kind of what entrepreneurship is.
Yeah, I mean, isn't entrepreneurship difficult? It's like, it takes a special kind of a person. An innovative product or idea in the current e-commerce, retail, or tech landscape that you feel excited about?
Nothing comes to mind at the moment. Sorry.
No, you're not using AI of any kind.
I'm using AI. I mean, it's obviously pretty fascinating, and I've used AI lately a lot with legal or maybe kind of not legal topic, kind of legal topic or accounting topic, where you kind of need like getting the right level of expertise is difficult to get sometimes. And I've found that AI is actually very good at giving you clear answer about a very specific question that requires a lot of legal knowledge.
Yeah, and it's improving, so hopefully it becomes a lot better. A business or productivity tool or software that you would recommend, or a productivity tip?
So obviously software is always important, and the past few years I finally was able to find one that kind of combines everything, and it's Zoho, the Zoho suite, and it's actually an Indian company, and I think it's pretty affordable, compared to some of the bigger one like NetSuite and all that stuff. It's very easy to set up, very easy to navigate, and for any entrepreneur, I will really recommend Zoho because they have really they have the accounting part, the CRM part, the inventory part, the payroll parts, and it's really well integrated and it works pretty well. It's user friendly, so that's something I will recommend.
Another startup or business that you think is currently doing great things?
Startup or e-commerce is going to be doing great thing.
Could be startups, could be another business, another product that you use.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been pretty fascinated by it's not a startup at all, but Patagonia, and how much influence they have over the marketplace and setting trends and the use of marketing, and I find pretty fascinating when see the number of people wearing their clothes, and so many different type of environment. So that doesn't really answer you. It's not really a startup, but that's really a business that I find pretty fascinating, and how much leverage they're able to have.
Yeah. A peer entrepreneur or business person whom you look up to, or someone who inspires you.
Um, so I mean, there are a few people that have really helped me along in the bike industry that no one would necessarily know in this. Among you listener, there's a guy named you were talking about the spicy curry earlier. There's a guy named Larry Peasy, who ran a few companies bike companies in the United States. There's another guy named Pat Cunane that ran a bunch of companies in the state that have helped me along. You know, I think, you know, for wannabe entrepreneur or people who are starting, I think it's really important to go straight to some decision maker they look up to. Just take the phone. Usually the best time is after 6 p.m. because they're alone in the office and they answer. There's no more gatekeeper, and I found like trying to talk to someone with really has leverage in one industry is and experience is really a great way to go, and people are so generous with their time, and I'm really I'm really grateful for, you know, the multiple people that have helped me along this journey and gave me information and shared the knowledge and experience.
I mean, that is so interesting. So basically, you believe in cold calling, like, you know, you basically find a number, call, and introduce yourself, or like, do you
Oh
do
yeah,
some introduction?
I've done that. I've done that many times, and I found that, you know, it's always the later you do it in the day, the more chances you have to talk to the person, because otherwise there's always a gatekeeper that's, you know, a secretary that's like, no, he's in a meeting, he's busy something, and while, you know, usually the guy running the show might be late, might be there quite kind of late working on some other stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Final question: best business advice that you have ever received, or you would give to other entrepreneurs?
Um, Business is about dealing with problems, and, you know, I read that. I remember reading that pretty early on in the book. It's like, hey, if you don't want to deal with problems, don't get in business, because, you know, having a business is a constant flow of ups and downs and problems coming to your desk. You know, being, you know, customer payments and supply chain and this and that. So I think that's like the main business advice is just, you know, it's just not easy, and also be patient, because, you know, you have to be patient and go through the paces of doing this, you know, doing sales and marketing and putting the product out there. Just have to be very patient.
Yeah, I mean, business is like, you know, creating value from nothing is very difficult.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, and you really need to be the biggest cheerleader. You need to be the biggest problem solver and everything to really build anything, you know, no matter how small or big. So, well, Ben, yeah.
And another piece of advice is, you know, just know your numbers. You know, as a leader of an organization, you always need to know, kind of have the balance sheet or the P&L in your head. You know, when you're talking to your customers, suppliers, or a banker, kind of like know, you know, how much you have in the bank, how much you're making per product, how much you're spending on marketing. It's really really critical to know the numbers, because business is all, I mean, it's about vision, it's about passions, about products, about people. But ultimately, if the numbers don't work, the business cannot sustain itself.
Very true, very true. Well, Ben, those were all the questions that I had. Thank you so much for sharing your story, for joining me today. Um, what is the best way people can get in touch, can buy your products?
So people can visit our website, yubabikes.com, YUBA BIKES.com. They will find a list of retailers that distribute our product across Canada or the United States, or Western Europe, or Australia for that matter. So again, yubabikes.com. There's obviously social media pages with Yuba or Yuba Bicycles, and and I invite them to visit the site and go try the product that might change their life.
Awesome. Well, Ben, thank you so much again for your time, for sharing your story. Really appreciate it, and I wish you all the very best.
All right, thank you so much, Sushant, and looking forward to talking to you soon again.
Thank you.